What's up everyone, it's Mangesh here, and today we're diving deep into the world of business analysis. And no, I'm not talking about spreadsheets and data models. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, the interview. Listen, we've all been there, right? The sweaty palms, the racing heart, trying to remember everything on your resume while answering tricky questions about conflicting requirements and stakeholder management. It's enough to make anyone want to run for the hills. But hold on. Before you start stressing, I'm here to tell you that acing your business analyst interview doesn't have to be a nightmare. In fact, with the right preparation, you can walk into that room feeling confident, prepared, and ready to knock their socks off. So let's get started. Alright, picture this. You're knee-deep in a project, deadlines are looming, and suddenly, BAM! Two stakeholders come at you with completely conflicting requirements. It's like they're speaking different languages. What do? Do you panic? Do you pick a side and hope for the best? Absolutely not. Here's where your inner diplomat comes in. The first thing you need to do is take a deep breath and remind yourself that conflict is normal, especially in the fast-paced world of business. It's how you handle it that sets you apart. So, instead of freaking out, schedule a meeting with both stakeholders. And I'm not talking about a quick email exchange, but a real face-to-face or Zoom meeting where you can really get to the bottom of the issue. During the meeting, make sure everyone feels heard and understood. Actively listen to their perspectives, ask clarifying questions, and document everything. The goal here is to identify the root cause of the conflict and find common ground. Remember, it's not about declaring a winner or loser, but about finding a solution that aligns with the overall business objectives. And hey, if things get a little heated, it happens. Don't be afraid to step in as a mediator and guide the conversation towards a productive outcome. Let's face it, sometimes stakeholders aren't even sure what they want, let alone how to articulate it. You get vague requests like, make it pop, or it needs to be more user-friendly, leaving you scratching your head, wondering what they actually need. Sound familiar? Well, get used to it because incomplete requirements are a fact of life for business analysts. But don't worry, I've got your back. The key to tackling incomplete requirements is to channel your inner detective and become a master of elicitation. This is where you really get to flex your analytical muscles. Start by digging deeper into the stakeholders' needs. Conduct thorough interviews, organize workshops, or even send out questionnaires to gather as much information as possible. Remember, it's not just about what they say they want, but also about understanding their underlying goals and pain points. Once you've gathered enough information, it's time to get specific. Use techniques like user stories or use cases to illustrate how the system or process will work in practice. And don't be afraid to schedule follow-up sessions to clarify any ambiguities or misunderstandings. Trust me, the more upfront you are about gathering complete requirements, the smoother your project will run in the long run. You're cruising along, project plan in hand, feeling confident about meeting those deadlines. Then, out of nowhere, a stakeholder swoops in with a last-minute requirement change. It's like a curveball thrown right when you thought you were about to hit a home run. Sound frustrating? It can be, but it's also a reality of the business world. So, how do you handle it without losing your cool? First and foremost, don't panic. Remember, you're the professional here. Take a deep breath, assess the situation, and resist the urge to immediately say yes or no. The first step is to understand the scope of the change. How will it impact the project timeline, budget, and resources? Once you have a clear understanding of the potential impact, it's time to document it and present it to the project manager and key stakeholders. This is where your communication skills really come into play. You need to clearly articulate the potential risks and benefits of implementing the change, allowing stakeholders to make an informed decision. If the change is approved, update the requirement documentation, notify all relevant teams, and adjust the project plan accordingly. And hey, if the change request is unreasonable or jeopardizes the entire project, don't be afraid to push back and advocate for what's best for the project and the business as a whole. Chapter 4. Prioritizing like a pro ranking requirements for maximum impact. Imagine you're building a house. You wouldn't start with the fancy light fixtures before laying the foundation, right? The same principle applies to software development and business process improvement. You need to prioritize your requirements to ensure you're focusing on the most impactful tasks first. But with a mountain of requirements staring you down, how do you even begin to prioritize? Well, that's where your trusty toolkit of prioritization techniques comes in. One popular method is the Moscow method, which stands for must have, should have, could have, and won't have. This simple yet effective framework helps you categorize requirements based on their criticality to the project's success. Another useful tool is the value versus effort matrix. This visual tool helps you plot requirements based on their perceived business value and the effort required to implement them. By focusing on high-value, low-effort tasks first, you can deliver maximum impact with minimal resources. And remember, prioritization isn't a one-man show. Involve your stakeholders in the process to ensure everyone is on the same page and the chosen priorities align with the overall business objectives. Chapter 5. Bridging the Gap. Resolving conflicts between business and developers. Picture this. You've meticulously gathered requirements, documented them in detail, and handed them off to the development team. You're feeling pretty good about yourself. But then, the dreaded email arrives. This requirement is not technically feasible. Suddenly, you're caught in the middle of a battle between the business side, who wants the world, and the developers, who are bound by the laws of code. So, how do you navigate this tricky terrain? First and foremost, check your ego at the door. Remember, it's not about proving who's right or wrong, but about finding a solution that works for everyone. Start by arranging a meeting with both the developers and the relevant stakeholders. The goal here is to foster open communication and understanding. Encourage the developers to clearly explain the technical constraints while also allowing the stakeholders to reiterate their business needs. Once everyone is on the same page, brainstorm alternative solutions. Can the requirement be modified slightly without sacrificing its core functionality? Are there any workarounds or third-party tools that can bridge the gap? Remember, compromise is key. By working collaboratively and focusing on finding a win-win solution, you can keep the project moving forward without burning bridges along the way. Chapter 6. Speaking the same language, ensuring requirements, clarity for all. You've meticulously documented every single requirement using all the right jargon and technical terms. You hand it off to the developers, feeling confident that they'll understand your vision. But then, weeks later, you realize they've built something completely different from what you had in mind. Sound familiar? This is a classic case of miscommunication, and it's a common pitfall in software development. The problem is, business analysts often speak a different language than developers. We're used to thinking in terms of business processes, user needs, and strategic goals, while developers are focused on code, algorithms, and technical specifications. So how do you bridge this communication gap and ensure everyone is on the same page? The key is to use clear, concise language that everyone can understand. Avoid technical jargon and industry-specific acronyms as much as possible. Instead, opt for simple, everyday language that clearly explains what the system or process needs to do. But it's not just about the words you use, it's also about how you present the information. Visual aids are your best friend. Use process flows, wireframes, and data models to illustrate your requirements in a way that is easy to understand, even for those who don't speak code. And don't underestimate the power of regular walkthroughs and feedback sessions. These meetings provide a valuable opportunity to clarify any misunderstandings, answer questions, and ensure everyone is on track. As a business analyst, you're like a detective, constantly on the lookout for clues that reveal hidden inefficiencies or areas for improvement. You're not just there to document the as-is state of a process, but to analyze it, challenge it, and ultimately find ways to make it better. But how do you go about spotting these elusive process gaps? It starts with a keen eye for detail and a healthy dose of curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask why. Why is this process done this way? Is there a more efficient way to achieve the same outcome? Are there any unnecessary steps that can be eliminated? Once you've identified a potential gap, don't just assume it's a problem that needs fixing. Validate your findings with stakeholders, gather data to support your observations, and analyze the potential impact of addressing the gap. Once you have a solid understanding of the problem and its potential solutions, it's time to formalize your findings through a change request process. Clearly articulate the problem, its impact on the business, and your proposed solution. By following a structured approach to identifying and addressing process gaps, you can ensure that your recommendations are taken seriously and have a real impact on the organization's efficiency and bottom line. Chapter 8. UAT Detective Navigating Defects and Requirement Gaps During Testing. The moment of truth has arrived, User Acceptance Testing or UAT. This is where the rubber meets the road, where actual users get their hands on the system and put it through its paces. But what happens when those pesky defects start rolling in? Do you point fingers and play the blame game? Absolutely not. Remember, UAT is all about collaboration and finding solutions. Your role as a business analyst is to triage those defects, determine their root cause, and work with the development team to resolve them. Start by carefully reviewing each defect report. Is it a true defect or is it a misunderstanding of the requirements? If it's a requirement gap, document it, prioritize it, and work with the stakeholders to determine the best course of action. Should the requirement be updated? Should the defect be deferred to a later release? Once you've identified the root cause of the defect, work closely with the development team to ensure it's fixed correctly and retested thoroughly. Remember, UAT is an iterative process, and it's not uncommon to uncover new defects or requirement gaps along the way. The key is to approach it with a solutions-oriented mindset and to view it as an opportunity to fine-tune the system and deliver a product that truly meets the needs of its users. Chapter 9. The Elusive Stakeholder. Strategies for Managing Unresponsive Contacts. You're on a tight deadline, you need critical information from a stakeholder, but they're MIA. You've sent emails, left voicemails, even tried carrier pigeons, but still, no response. Sound familiar? Unresponsive stakeholders are a common headache for business analysts, but it's important to handle the situation professionally and strategically. First, take a step back and try to understand why the stakeholder might be unavailable. Are they simply busy with other projects? Do they have a full plate and are feeling overwhelmed? Or is there a deeper issue at play, such as a lack of buy-in or understanding of the project's importance? Once you have a better grasp of the situation, tailor your communication approach accordingly. If it's a simple matter of being busy, try scheduling meetings in advance, sending calendar invites with clear agendas, and using multiple communication channels to increase your chances of getting a response. If the stakeholder is unresponsive due to a lack of understanding or buy-in, consider scheduling a face-to-face meeting to address their concerns, reiterate the project's objectives, and emphasize the value of their input. Chapter 10. Uncharted Territory, Gathering Requirements. When documentation doesn't exist, you've been tasked with improving a business process or developing a new system, but there's one small problem. There's absolutely no existing documentation. It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark without a flashlight. Daunting? Yes, but not impossible. When documentation is scarce, your best bet is to tap into the wealth of knowledge held by the people who know the process best, the users themselves. Schedule interviews with key users, observe the current process in action, and ask questions. Lots of questions. What are the pain points? What works well? What are their suggestions for improvement? If possible, try to get your hands dirty and shadow users as they perform their tasks. This first-hand experience will give you invaluable insights into the nuances of the process and help you identify areas for improvement. And don't be afraid to get creative. Consider using techniques like prototyping to bring your ideas to life and gather feedback from users early on in the development process. And there you have it. We've covered 10 common business analyst interview scenarios and how to handle them like a pro. Remember, acing your interview is all about showcasing your skills, your experience, and your ability to think critically and solve problems. So, the next time you're facing a tough interview question, take a deep breath, remember these tips, and let your confidence shine through. You've got this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And hey, if you have any interview horror stories or questions you'd like me to answer in a future video, drop them in the comments below. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing those interviews.